Brave Soul. It's your friend Chrystal Dawn, and this is Her Brave Story podcast.
I didn't even see it coming. And all of a sudden, I'm just feel myself getting slammed by what felt like a giant muscle. And I go flying out of the water.
I want to begin by acknowledging that I am on the sacred lands of the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and I pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm truly grateful that you are here. Her Brave Story podcast is a conversation that sparks courage, ignites possibility, and celebrates the brave in every woman, because women's stories matter. If we haven't met yet, welcome. I'm Chrystal Dawn, storyteller, saltwater mama, and women's mentor, here to support you in creating a life that you love with more freedom, joy, and ease. Today's guest is Kaiulani, a writer, an artist, a surfer, and a mother living on Maui with a story you won't forget. And if you've tuned into this episode, here's what I know. You're someone who's curious about sharks, curious about the ocean, curious about survival, or maybe about what it's really like to go through something like this, something life-altering, and come out the other side. Kaiulani was out surfing when she was attacked by a shark, and today, you and I get to hear her personal account. Not just the headlines, but her real story, what happened in the water, and what happened afterwards, and how Kaiulani has navigated recovery, grief, and finding strength through creativity, community, and motherhood. This isn't just about the trauma or the attack. It's about choosing to live and showing younger women what it looks like to rise with perseverance and grace. I trust that you're just as excited as I am to hear her brave story. Please help me give a warm welcome to Kaiulani Cole. Hello and welcome to Her Brave Story podcast. I'm so grateful that you could be with us here today on Her Brave Story.
Thanks for having me, Chrystal. I'm excited as well.
Kaiulani is tuning in with us from Maui, one of the Hawaiian islands.
I live on the north shore of Maui in a little town called Haiku, and it's the windward side, and Maui's known for its wind. But we also have the surf spot Peahi, or Jaws as it's called. I don't personally surf Peahi. My husband does. It's a real special spot in the world. It's rural and small, and everyone knows each other. And I just feel really lucky to live here.
Oh, it is a beautiful part of the world. I can speak to that from having gone to Lahaina Luna for part of my high school years. Shout out to everyone in Lahaina as well who's still recovering from fires that devastated the area.
Absolutely.
And Kaiulani is a writer, mother, wife, surfer, and a shark attack survivor. Today we're going to hear from Kaiulani on her experiences throughout this last year that was so difficult for you, so challenging, but also catalyzed a lot of transformation as well. In particular, overcoming the shark attack and moving into a different space and what that's brought about for you in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, it's been almost a year, or actually it has been a year and a half since the attack. And it's still surreal to hear people say that, or even to just hear myself say it. While I've done a lot of work around it, and I've, certainly done a lot of processing and healing around it. It's still just such a bizarre thing to have had happened. Chances aren't, I think the stat is 1 in 11.5 million people get attacked by a shark. So,
wow. You're 1 in 11.5 million.
We have quite a few shark attacks here.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the month of October, we actually call Sharktober, because there are guaranteed every year going to be a number of shark attacks here. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been a wild ride. I can say that for sure.
I'd love to pause here and just ask you, Kai, how you're feeling about talking about your experiences as a survivor of a shark attack today. Are you feeling like this is something you want to talk about and share about?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like talking it's a really important part of my process. A lot of grief came with it around just immediately feeling not safe in this place that I've always gone to as my refuge, and always felt so safe in the water, and like it's just a natural part of who I am. I think it's just like grieving the loss of a person. In our culture, it's like people put a timeline on it, right? And so a few months in, I started to feel people didn't want me to talk about it anymore. And people stopped kind of asking how I was doing. And it was almost harder 3 to 6 months post-attack than it was immediately. And I think that was part of the reason why, was that I felt people didn't want to hear about it anymore for whatever reason. I mean, I think it brings up people's own fear, definitely as one piece of it. I think there's a lot of different variables and factors, but no, talking about it for me has definitely been a part of my healing and continues to be. So I'm happy to share the story or just answer questions or however you want to go about it today.
Awesome, Kai. Thanks so much for speaking to that. It's really interesting to hear your journey as well with this. And I can imagine our listeners, anybody who's been through something really big, it might not have been a shark attack, where you have grief and trauma afterwards, and you might be able to relate here where Kai is talking to the time limit for being able to actually express and to work through in a public way what we're going through. And by public, I mean neighbors, friends, really being able to express what we're going through as we're going through it and not have to keep everything inside is what I'm hearing too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's just like with any kind of grief, you can't fully know what that person's gone through unless you've gone through it yourself. And so with an experience like this, I went through a phase there where I was just seeking out other people who had been through it. And at that point, there wasn't anybody here that I knew of. And then last October, I was on Kauai, and I was set up on a blind surf date. I didn't know it was happening with Bethany Hamilton. So I got to actually go surf with her, and she was super kind and answering my questions around just like her healing around it. But yeah, I think that was one of the huge takeaways afterwards. It was just, I didn't have anyone to talk to who had been through it. And that was really challenging.
Wow.
It's just huge to be able to find other people who have been through it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love you identifying that as being a healing factor. And I can't help but ask, how was it to meet Bethany Hamilton?
Yeah, it was cool. She's very, very kind, super humble. Just down to earth. She wanted to talk about our kids and our families. And, but one thing, a couple takeaways from that conversation, just in regards to the shark piece, was I asked her how long it took her before she wasn't thinking about sharks every single time she was in the water. Because I'm kind of still there. I'll have a half hour go by and I'll go, oh my gosh, I just didn't think about it for half an hour. I wasn't watching the shadows underneath me and kind of feeling jumpy for like a full session or, whatever it is. And she told me it took her a good 3 years before she wasn't just like thinking about it constantly. So that was just kind of reassuring that I probably will get to that place. And then the other thing that was interesting that she said was, we were just talking about both of our experiences. I said to her, I wanted to try to reach out to you when it first happened, because we have mutual friends, the surfing community is so small. And I said, but I didn't feel worthy because you lost your arm and the shark only bit my board. And one thing she said to me was, she said, think about this. She goes, I didn't see the shark. And she goes, you saw the shark, you felt the shark. She just said everybody has a different story too. And so we all have different processes within this kind of parallel experience. I think that the Mick Fanning incident was probably the one that I've heard of. I mean, obviously I haven't heard of every shark attack that's ever happened, but that was probably most similar to mine.
Oh. Wow. And I love this. You were talking to another woman about an experience you had. You came to her in humility too, because for those of you who don't know, if you're listening in, Bethany Hamilton is a woman who was attacked by a shark and she lost her arm on the island of Kauai. This was
20 years ago.
20 years ago. Wow. She has gone on to inspire so many people and become a champion in her own sport of surfing, even participating in the Olympics. She's an incredible woman. we give a lot of respect and love out to Bethany. How wonderful that Bethany was able to meet you where you are too in that stage and really encourage you and help you identify not only your worthiness of, look, it doesn't matter what experience, what variation of that experience you've had, but that this is a journey and you're on it. It's not going to be solved right away.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And now I know everybody's probably hanging on the edge of their chair. Okay, so tell us what happened, Kaiulani. What happened?
Okay, here's what happened. It was October 2nd, 2023, and it was opening day for surf season here in Hawaii. It was the first day of our first Northwest swell, and I actually had jury duty that morning, and I was so bummed because it's like the first surf day. But I got called off around noon, and I drove to one of my favorite wintertime surf spots here on the North Shore. It's called Tavares Bay, and there's a beach with a parking lot. And the break is it's about a 10-minute paddle from the beach. So you paddle along sea cliffs that have rocks on the inside, and the spot breaks in front of a cliff, in front of rocks. So I checked the spot. I didn't have a good feeling that day. The water was really turned up just because it was the first swell. It wasn't, I wouldn't call it murky, but the sand was just tossed up. And if I'm being honest, I was just struggling mental health wise. I had just one thing after another happen starting January of 2023. I'll just list them off real quick. It's kind of unbelievable. I had my dad, who lives over in Hilo, he had a mental health break and ended up in the hospital. Right after that, I was diagnosed with a tumor on my parathyroid gland, and so I wasn't feeling great health wise, and I was dealing with that and learning about what I had to have surgery to remove it eventually. There was a horrific storm in California where my family owns a business, and our business completely flooded. After that, my mom had a heart attack, totally healthy mom. It was like a huge surprise. I had my surgery to remove my parathyroid tumor. It was benign, which was great news. And then we had the fires here on Maui in August, which were just completely devastating. And our whole island was grieving. And then right after the fires, my husband's cousin, who he and I were both very close to, same age as us, he and his wife have two boys who are exactly my girls' ages, and we call them the other Coles. He had a heart attack mountain biking and just dropped dead on the trail. So we were on the heels of all of this. It was the hardest year of my life for sure.
Oh my goodness. I'm just so sorry. That just sounds like the whole year. It's hard to believe it all happened in 1 year.
Yeah, it was just wild. I was struggling with my mental health, and in hindsight, I think all those things were happening because the universe was trying to wake me up, and I wasn't listening. I was an elementary school teacher for 15 years, and I had stopped teaching the year prior, and I was just kind of bumbling, like not sure of what I wanted to do next, even though in the back of my head I knew what I was supposed to be doing. And I was feeling a little directionless. And my whole life I've wanted to be a writer, and I've always let just fear and writer's block, whatever you want to call it, excuse after excuse. I wasn't doing it. I wasn't living what I knew I was put here to do. My therapist said something to me one time that I will never forget, and I tell people this all the time. She says, depression is a suppression of your expression.
Ooh.
And I love that. It just resonates with me so deeply. And I think especially as women, as females, we are innately creative. And if that is blocked and that's not flowing, we can just get stuck. So
can you repeat that just one more time, just for our listeners and myself, to just like let that land?
Yeah, absolutely. Depression is a suppression of our expression. Yeah. I know, really powerful. So powerful. So I was just not mentally doing great. And I started paddling out, and I was super jumpy. This is a spot where there's a lot of Hawaiian green sea turtles. And every time a turtle would surface, I kind of I just had a bad feeling. And I had this thought, if something happens to me out here today, Krister, my husband, can raise our girls with Kelly and Aaron's boys.
And Kelly and Aaron, this is from your...
Aaron's is Krister's cousin who died. Yeah.
Who died. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we had just gotten back from being in Santa Cruz with Kelly and the boys, just trying to help support them and be with them. So I paddle out and I get out into the lineup, and there were 4 groms, which is surfer term for kids. So there were these 4 kind of like preteen boys, and I start kind of talking story with them. One of them was a neighbor. They started doing this trick in between sets, laying on their boards on their stomachs sideways, and they were trying to flip themselves underwater and come back up on their boards. And they're like, watch us, Auntie. And I'm like, uh-huh. And, in hindsight, I think that's probably what attracted the shark. I think the shark probably got curious because there was a lot of splashing and commotion. So we're kind of taking turns, getting waves. And then they go, we're going to paddle over to the left. And I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be sitting here all by myself. And I'm already not having a good feeling about this. My big mistake that day was not listening to my intuition. With my girls, I always call my intuition my knowing, and I was not listening to my knowing. And I'm just trying to like talk myself through it. Like, you never get a surf break to yourself. Like, it's really fun out here. It's a beautiful day. The sun's shining. Just put those feelings aside. So I'm sitting there waiting, watching the horizon, waiting for a set to come. And the shark came from behind. I didn't even see it coming. And all of a sudden, I'm just feel myself getting slammed by what felt like a giant muscle. And I go flying out of the water. And I, come back down and I come up, and I knew immediately what it was. I just knew immediately. I mean, what else is like that strong and is going to have that hard of an impact on you? So I come up, and my board is a good 10 feet away from me. The shark had bit the back of my board and severed my leash. And I'm so lucky that I was sitting on my board, because if I had been leaning down, it would have bit my leg. So I came up, and I, as lifelong surfers, I think this is something that we all think about. Like, what would I do if a shark came? And you always think like punch it or fight it. But one of the things is obviously don't look like prey. So I, right away, I'm just thinking to myself, okay, you have to stay calm. Don't swim for your board. Just square up to the direction that you think that thing went. So I square up. I'm still facing the horizon. And next thing I know, it comes up underneath me, and it lifted me up out of the water, and I'm on its back. And I only had a bathing suit on the water. It was really warm that day. And I just remember, I can still feel just the rough sandpaper skin on my thighs and on my arms. And I'm looking at its fin, and I'm holding its fin because I'm literally just splayed out on it. And then at one point, so just a little side note to the story, there's an empty lot. It's all houses, but there's an empty lot right in front of the surf spot. There were 2 guys checking the surf when this happened. So they saw the whole thing happen. Wow. And then there was one guy on the beach who was checking the surf with binoculars. So he saw the whole thing happen as well.
Thank God as well.
And it was interesting checking in with all of them afterwards. One of them said to me, you were so far out of the water when you were on its back that they said that like my, like way past my hips was like up out of the water. And then one of the guys also said to me, at first, you kind of put your hands up, and he's like, I didn't know if it was a move like I surrender, or if it was like you're trying to keep your hands away from its mouth. Yeah, and but I just remember getting really clear in that moment, just thinking about my daughters, and it was like, no, like they need me. I'm not going out like this, and so I just started to fight. I just hammered down on the back of that shark and just started wailing on it. And it, it started like thrashing in like a moon position and trying to get me off. And then finally it thrashed me off, and it swam away. I mean, again, I'm in the water just going like, don't move yet. Make sure it swims away. And it started swimming in the direction of the left where the kids were. And so I'm scrambling to my board to get into the rocks, and then I'm yelling, shark, get out of the water. So I get on my board, and I've never paddled so fast in my life, just straight into the rocks that you normally try to avoid, and got into the rocks. And then I noticed the guys right above me on the cliff, and they're yelling, are you okay? Are you hurt? And one of them had taken his clothes off, was trying to figure out how to get down the cliff to me, and he was holding his shirt to use as a tourniquet. And he goes, we thought for sure you got bit. Like I'm so glad you're okay. And then that was when he goes, look at your board. And that was the first time that I noticed that my board had these massive teeth marks and a chunk taken out of it. And my leash was, connected to my leg, but covered. And
oh my goodness.
The kids, they couldn't hear me, but one of them saw the way I was paddling into the rocks and said to the other kids, like, oh, something's going on. We got to go in. And I think at that point, maybe the guys were also yelling, shark. And so and then there were two other people surfing the left as well. One of the guys didn't notice any of it and kept surfing. And then this woman, Melody, was the other person surfing, and she paddled in with the boys. Thank God for her. I mean, I call her, one of my earth angels, because I was just in such shock at that point, and she just came in and figured out how we were going to get up the cliff and back to the parking lot. One of the guys on the cliff, the guy who had his shirt ready to tourniquet, he starts talking to me, and he goes, hold your board up. You're going to want a picture of this later. And I go, oh, okay. And I hold my board up, and it's like the oddest photo ever, because I'm smiling. This like chunk taken out of my board, and my legs are all bloody too from the rocks. And and I'm sitting here smiling, posing. But it was great to talk to him, because he shared with me a couple things. He said, I know that shark because he spearfishes that reef a lot. And he goes, that's a Galapagos shark that frequents this reef. And he said it was a 10 to 12 footer
Wow.
that he had seen out there multiple times. He's like, I know that shark. And then the other thing he said to me was, he had been bumped by a shark a couple bays down the previous winter. He actually had his little 2-year-old daughter on his board when it happened. And he said, I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice. There's going to be light winds and waves all week, and try to get back in the water tomorrow if you can, because otherwise, trust me, like it's just going to embed into your body so deeply, and it's going to be harder and harder the more time you let go. I was so grateful in the end that he said that to me.
Wow. Another just crazy surfer thing to say. Not crazy, because I'm a surfer too, and I get it. But also, you've just been attacked by a shark.
Yeah, he's like, get back out there.
No, do you need medical help? Sister, you got to get back in the water.
Totally.
Somebody no get back in. Ever.
Yeah. So it was wild. And one of the kids' dads was on the beach, and the guy that saw it with the binoculars is like, yelling, someone's getting attacked by a shark out there. And so the dad, who was in charge of this group of kids, just went screaming down the Hana Highway and pulled into this empty lot as well. And so by the time the kids and Melody and I got up to the highway, he was there waiting too. And just so grateful for all the helpers in this situation. I mean, I don't know what I would have done without them. It's just like, I don't even know the next thing to do. So he got us back to the parking lot, and I wrote my story down. And as I said in my writing, I think that all of us as surfers, it can be a frustrating sport. It's a bit selfish and individual, and there's so many of us now. And I sometimes have sessions where I'm more frustrated than I'm actually having fun, just because of the crowds. This was just such a great reminder, the kindness of humanity and my fellow surfers. I was enveloped in this big hug, and here, drink some water, take deep breaths. Like, let me pour hydrogen peroxide on your cuts. Let me get your board to your truck for you. Even telling me, this is what you need to do next. Wait until you can drive, and then call your husband, and then go to the beach with the nearest lifeguard tower because it needs to be reported. And every step of the way that day, people were so kind. The lifeguards could not have been more supportive and more kind. Every time I see them, I'm just like, thank you guys for being so great that day.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a wild ride, no pun intended.
Being on the other side of it, I feel I can laugh. But when you're talking about the shark comes up underneath you, you're sitting there and you're saying, I'm frustrated, I'm a little bit aggravated, I'm not being present in the moment. And not like any of us could foresee that a shark could come, because just for anybody who's listening, sharks often blindside their target and just come up, and that's part of the attack. So when we say attack, that's really using it in that way.
Right.
And so you're sitting there and you're having these deep feelings, you're just not being present, and then suddenly you're pulled right into the moment. Like nothing else could do, maybe, as well. Like you have so many reasons, though, too. I want to just say you have so many reasons to be remorseful. You have so much grief that's happening in your life. There's so many unknowns. You have had a surgery. You're probably questioning so many things about your own body, let alone the universe and life and the unkindness of life, too, taking people that we love, the threat of losing someone that we love, your mom having the heart attack.
Yeah.
And then there you are sitting there pondering life's greatest questions.
Yeah.
And can you take us to that moment when the shark comes up?
Yeah. And it was more of just this moment where I remember clearly thinking, I don't want this to be happening, but it's on, like it's happening. And like you said, I don't know if I've ever been so present in my life. It was wild. And it was so primal too.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I think I wrote at one point, and probably evolutionarily, it makes more sense for us to be fighting wild animals than it does for us to be, sitting in front of a computer. um, and I really felt that. I mean, it was definitely one of those times in my life, I would say, like births and that, for just really having to focus on getting through it. And I think it happens so quickly and so slowly at the same time. I mean, I think anyone who's had a real fast traumatic event like that can relate, like a car accident or whatever it may be. But yeah, that feeling of being pulled into the present moment. And I mean, I'll definitely for sure talk about the aftermath, like the days following, the week following. But I think one thing that was like going on for me in the week following was my nervous system was just so elevated. My mentors, a woman named Zelly, she's a native Hawaiian friend of mine who has recently passed. She helps me a lot in the healing through this. And one of the things that she said to me that I didn't think of myself was just, if you think about the strength and the energy and just the primal instincts of this animal that you came head to head with, and just think about like how elevated that energy is. Like she said, you had to rise to that yourself in order to dance and to survive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think one of the downfalls to like society right now is just that we're inside and we're on our computers, and I think that we're craving just this idea of like being alive. And so even though it was like this crazy wild thing that I don't want to go through again, and I also would not wish it on my worst enemy because it was so scary and intense, and I mean the what ifs are just wild, but I felt so alive in that moment. And I think that part of the challenge of that week or the couple weeks after was coming down from that, probably akin to big wave surfers or people who skydive or just do very extreme things, and then their adrenals kind of burn afterwards. And so I think a lot of that was going on for me in the weeks that followed as well. But yeah.
Yeah, so deep. And you brought up the aftermath of this journey. How does one recover? Because you said somebody who was there said, yeah, let you just get back in, sister, get back in the water. So you do that. You get back in. And how do you flow on from there? You get in. What does the path after surviving a shark attack look like for you? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it's a good good big question. So they closed. Protocol is it was very fascinating to find out about all the different protocols around shark attacks. And I actually, that word attack, you and I have talked about this, has felt so strange to me right off the bat, because here I'm going, well, of course the shark's curious, like, and I'm in its home, and I know the risks of all these, free diving and surfing and all these water sports that I do. So protocol. So the lifeguards, and then you have to do an interview with like Department of Land and Natural Resources here, and then you have to do an interview there's an international shark attack database that lists every shark attack that happens in the entire world. There's all this protocol around it. So the first thing is that they closed the beaches in Hawaii for 24 hours within a certain vicinity after one occurs. So they closed the beaches. So they were to open at noon on the next day. I told my husband, we're going to be there at noon. we're going to surf, and I want you to stay like right next to me, because I'm completely freaked out. So we got down there, and, people are, coming up to me. I heard what happened. And it was just, the whole thing was so surreal. But I put my shark band on, which I wasn't wearing that day. I had forgotten about it because we hadn't had waves in so long. I put my shark band on, and we paddled out, and it was completely terrifying. I was, what am I, just in my head, I'm like, what am I doing? Why? I don't have to be doing this. But then I'm like, I think he's right. I think if I don't do this, it's going to settle so deeply in my body. It's going to get harder and harder. And part of me was saying, like, let some of your trauma release into the water. Let the water hold it. Let the water hold it. But yeah, I mean, every, contrast of light had me holding my board and pulling my feet out of the water. And every time I would duck dive, every time I was under the water, I was just like scrambling, trying to get back to the surface, back to my board. It was really hard. It was really hard and really terrifying. After that first day, my husband, Chrystal, goes, okay, I could see how hard that was for you. Are we doing it again tomorrow? And I said, yep. And
Wow.
the next 4 days, we just kept at it. And I'm really glad that I did. I'm really glad I did that. And I still find that when I go through periods of time that I'm not surfing and not getting in the ocean, that's when the fear starts to creep up in me even more. But I was just a wreck. I was so out of my body. It felt like, and I'm sure this is probably a natural trauma response, but it's almost like it's almost like you have to leave your body because your mind's just trying to like protect you from your emotions or something. And sleeping was so hard. I was just tossing and turning all night, and I really had to have Chrystal like cocooning me in order to even like start to fall asleep at all. And I was shaking and like just cold sweats. But one really interesting thing started to happen during the night when I was kind of like when I'd be like in between worlds, like kind of between sleep and like starting to fall asleep a little bit. And I started to have this recurring dream. I had it 3 nights in a row where I was like underwater, because I'm just replaying over and over in my head. But it started to turn into me being underwater with the shark, kind of almost in like this dance, this yin yang formation. And it was like my mind's eye was like trying to change the attack into this like primal like interaction dance, like the feminine spirit and nature intertwined. It was so interesting. And then I just was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to get through this? It's completely consumed me. It's all I can think about. It's all also, as the community's finding out that it's me, I'm just flooded with texts and calls. And every time I go to the beach or leave the house, it's just kind of surrounded. And it was a lot, but it all came from a place of caring. And I was so grateful for everybody who checked in on me, because that was another interesting thing, was some of the reactions, especially as time went on, which I can get into later. But yeah, I was like, what's next? And miraculously, so it happened on a Monday. On a Friday, my friend Zelly called me, and she goes, I heard what happened. And I go, okay. And she goes, do you want to come see me? And I said, yeah, please. So.
And who is Zelly, and why would she want you to come see her?
Yeah. So Zelly is a friend I met in a permaculture design certification course that we took together some years back. And she was in her 60s. She's native Hawaiian and she grew up on the island of Molokai. And she and I just had an immediate connection in this class and remained friends. She's incredible. She's a musician. She's a paddler. She does Hawaiian energy worker. She's just very tapped into spirit and healing and energy. And yeah, she's just incredible. And she said, let me do a healing session with you. I was like, oh gosh, thank you. I didn't know what
Yeah.
I needed, but you did. So thank you. I went up to her house. She lives up country, up in Kula. And I walked into her studio and she just immediately embraced me. And it felt like right where I was supposed to be, just in her arms and in her magical healing space. We talked about what had happened, and she asked how I was feeling, and I said my nervous system is a wreck, and I'm terrified that it could happen again. I'm tired, I'm exhausted just from all the attention and communication around it. And I also shared with her, I said, I'm going through this very traumatic thing, but we're just 6 weeks post fire, and the whole island is grieving, and the events and devastation around the fire, some of the things that happen around that just make what happened with me seem, kind of just inconsequential. And I so just talked to her about how, like, I just felt like I was trying to, like, also tread lightly around that. I
And so
didn't tell her.
much, so much
Yeah.
vulnerability in what you just said. Really vulnerable to share that in this space. Thank you.
Yeah, I really felt that. I mean, people lost loved ones and everything they had. And um, so I didn't tell her about my dream. And
Of the dancing, of you dancing with the shark in this sort of
yeah,
yin yang
yeah,
formation. Yeah.
yeah, because she was kind of like, okay, let's get you on the table. So she gets me on her table and she puts her hands over me and she starts a chant, or an oli, as it's called in Hawaiian, which you know. And she does this calling chant. You probably know it from growing up in Hawaii, e ho mai. So she's calling in the spirits and the universe and the healers. And she finishes the chant and she does a few other things around my body. And then she says, I'll never forget this. She opens her eyes above me and she goes, it's your amakua, mano, and that means shark. And so in Hawaiian culture, our there's a belief that everybody has what's called an amakua. And so your amakua is it's an animal, usually a very strong animal, like a shark or a whale or a pueo, an owl. And it's the animal that's assigned to you, and it's believed that it's your departed ancestors or loved ones who have come back in this animal to guide you, watch you, take care for you. So she says to me, Mano, shark, the shark, that's your amakua. And it came to you to wake you up because you have big work to do in this world, don't you? And I'm just sitting there with this crying and shaking. And she goes, you know things. You're very intuitive and you know things. And she goes, you knew it was coming. And I'm just sitting here like going, just sobbing.
Wow.
And she just said, girl, you have big work to do in this world. It's time. Stop sitting on your butt. Like, get on your path. So I think I did like 4 or 5 sessions with her, and I can't even tell you how much she helped me through all of that. And she also put me in touch with a somatic therapist that she knew. And so I started doing somatic therapy, which helped so much. It definitely was what helped. I'm surfing Tavares again. As of about, I don't know, a month to 6 weeks ago, I'm finally paddling myself out and back in on my own. But through somatic therapy, it was, okay, first step, go park in the parking lot, and even that at first was like, and then it was second step, just stand on the sand. Third step, put your feet in the water. It's like all those little steps. And eventually it was, okay, swim over the reef. And then,
Oh, wow.
yeah. And then paddle out on a longboard with your husband next to you when there's no waves. So that somatic therapy helped a lot as well. Healing isn't linear. I'm still upside down and all over the place with it, but I am starting there again.
Wow. Yeah, and you're here. You're sharing your story. You're taking the steps.
Yeah. Yeah. I am. Yeah. And I actually I'm writing. I went to the Kauai Writers Conference in November, which is one of the biggest in the country, and I got to learn. I got to take a couple master classes, and just I was so humbling. I learned so much. They had their first spoken word event that they've ever done, and I was chosen to tell my story about the shark dance and about Zelly, and it was really healing and prolific for me because last August, I got a call from Zelly's partner one day, and she said, I have some bad news. Zelly was diagnosed with a brain tumor and it's inoperable and she doesn't have long to live. So I got to go see her a couple times after getting that news, and I got to read her my whole story that I had written out that included her and her part in helping me heal. And it was just like, it was so special to read that to her. And then the last thing that she said to me when I left her for what I didn't know was going to be the last time I saw her, but I was walking out the door and she says, Kai, I have one more thing I want to tell you. And I said, what is it, Della? And she said, I've had an incredible life because I always said yes. And so she said, just say yes. Just keep saying yes. And so I got to speak the shark story on the stage at the writing conference. And, I said that at the end. And then the last thing I said was, I'm standing here before you tonight, to say yes. So it just felt like such a cool way to get to like honor her and the impact she had on my life.
Oh, wow. Oh, John, I know I'm a mess. I'm crying. Sure, if you are listening and you've got to hear Kaiulani's story that she's been telling us of her experience, you're probably crying too. And there's so many reasons to feel deep emotion right now with everything you shared, coming face to face with death, really, as well, or being in a space where you don't know how much further you're going to go physically. And then to be confronted with everything that you had to deal with before that moment, your mom having a heart attack, losing someone you love so much, your dad suffering from mental health, everything, the surgery that you had, even though it's benign, and then the shark attack, the writing, this wild experience, and then deeply connecting with someone who gets you so much too, who knew, I'm going to give her a few days. I know when to come in. And when I come in, I'm going to bring what medicine I have and help and share resources and say, hey, this is somebody else who could help you too. And then her message on top of that and your legacy of your life too, of saying yes to standing up in front of people. I can only imagine that feeling is something quite scary in itself for many of us to do public speaking. And to share your story, to be vulnerable, to truly connect.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really amazing. Definitely a highlight. I have that shark to thank for a lot. Not only for sparing me. It was definitely just one of those defining moments in your lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so much has come out of it.
And bringing your family close. It sounds like your husband, Krista, who I know to be an amazing man, was really holding you through it. And your two beautiful girls, I can imagine had their own fears around everything too. And it's been a journey for all of you.
Yeah, it really has. I actually I drew a lot of inspiration. I mean, like you said, it's not easy to speak in front of people. My oldest daughter, Malia, she's 13 now, but last year she was 12. She had an opportunity at her school to sign up, and they did a TED Talk for the middle school and high school at her school. So she came home from school one day and she goes, Mom, I signed up to do a TED Talk. There's only two of us middle schoolers. The rest are all high school kids, but I'm going to do it. And I go, oh, cool. Like, what are you going to talk about? And she goes, I'm going to talk about how hard this last year has been. And I go, yeah, I mean, duh, obviously it's been challenging for you too. You went through all this as well. Like, lost your favorite uncle, mom attacked by a shark, just one thing after another. And
Fires. Yeah.
the fires. I mean, all of it. There were fires up by her, right by her school. And we got to watch her last spring stand on stage at her school in front of a couple hundred people and give a TED Talk about her own mental health and how she got herself through her own hard years. So it was just an inspiration. I really drew on her strength and courage and vulnerability when I stood up on that stage. And
my goodness. Wow. That's amazing. And right now you can check the show notes and you'll be able to find links, as many links as we can for the resources that Kai's giving us, her own account of what she's been through and her memory of that experiences from this year. And what a powerful family.
Yeah, these girls they're pretty amazing. This next generation, gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. Well, having role models is real important. As you know, having other women, other girls to look up to and say, yeah, somebody's saying something that I hear. And even to have the courage to put her hand up. It's only high schoolers, know?
I know. Yeah, it's a very proud mama moment.
Even though we're not taking credit for our children's experiences, I believe we choose to parent as well, how our children are able to show confidence in the world and show resilience and show certain attributes of being well supported and cared for.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
Yeah.
And I know that they also come into the world being a lot of who they are, but
we're just supporting them to do that. But I think it is a big job being a parent, no doubt. And then when we talk about perfectionism, all these things we want to do, and we're doing our best to parent, but it's in those moments that we're not even parenting, that the parenting is happening. Like you having this experience, getting back in the water. I'm sure there are many experiences before that, but just her seeing an example of another human even doing something really brave.
Yeah, and that was definitely impetus for me getting back in the water too, is because one of the first things I thought about was when my girls hear about this, I don't want them to be afraid of the ocean because they love the ocean as much as I do. And people always ask me, like, were they scared to get back in the water? And they just did it. Mm-hmm. They just both got right back in. But it was interesting, just kind of back to different people's reactions around it. Malia definitely, I think just because she's older and she's in middle school, she had boys coming up to her being like, that's just a rumor. That didn't even happen. Just
wow.
It's really discounting the whole thing. But of course, her being her, she's setting them all straight. Which I didn't do as good of a job with. I wasn't even, it was actually my husband, Krister, who pointed out to me at one point, because he was starting to hear it. He said to me, it's really interesting to observe a lot of male reaction around your story. Wow. He goes, I feel like a lot of them want to discount it or downplay it. And it's like, what's that about? And wow. I was having that, and I still have that happen where people go, oh, you just got bumped, you're fine. Or like, that whole you're fine thing, which drives me crazy.
Yeah.
That happens a lot in parenting as well. But yeah. And what is that about? Is that just your own fear around sharks popping up, or does it is it because the ending of my story might have something to do with female empowerment, or it's like, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But it's been
Wow, really juicy questions here. Really interesting to deeply dive into that. We're not going to do that here today, but I still want to linger here for a moment because you say, oh, your daughter came home and says the boys were the ones who were
yeah.
saying things that were undermining any belief in her that you had had an experience and survived it and recovered and been stronger because of it.
Right.
That it couldn't possibly have been as rough as it sounded. It must have been easier for her to overcome it like that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, such a range, anywhere from that didn't actually happen to, wow, your mom's a badass, you know?
Yeah.
But there were definitely some gender patterns as far as how people received the story of what had happened. So I'm in constant dialogue with my girls about this. As females in our culture, we're just constantly being told it's like two ends of the spectrum. We're not enough, or we're too much, or
Yeah.
And it's just no, it's neither. Neither. But yeah.
Thank you so much for having the courage to share your story and to live it and to be a living example of grace and courage and badassery.
Well, I didn't really have much of a choice. It's like you gotta survive through this, so
yeah.
step up to the
And a question I always ask on here, and we kind of went through it though, was how has trusting your intuition changed after this event and after this time? How do you show up differently now?
I listen a lot. I'm getting a lot better at listening, and it's a practice for sure. I notice a few things. I think that for us to trust ourselves, we have to know ourselves. We have to love ourselves. You know, if you're not in that place of self-love, or you're just in a place of disconnect within yourself, or you're too busy, or there's just like too many distractions coming in and you can't get quiet. It's just so easy to not even notice when those feelings are coming up. Again, I'm constantly talking to my girls about getting quiet and learning step one, and really starting to train yourself. Again, I say again because I think when we come into the world, we're probably really good at listening to our intuition, right? And then all these layers of the not enoughs, the too muches, the noise and the chatter, get into our brains and into our hearts, and we forget. So I think it's just coming back to our roots and our self-love, and the quiet and grounding, and just keeping those things in mind. Yeah.
The stillness, quiet spaces.
Yeah. Yeah, the body scans. I try to do those.
Mm.
A couple other mama friends. And I started, it's been about a year now. We started a girls' moon circle for preteen and early teen girls. And it keeps growing and growing. But like, these are some of the topics that we're talking about and putting into practice. And it's been really cool.
Wow. I love the sound of this.
Yeah.
I wish I could have been a part of something like that.
I know. Me too.
Oh.
Me too.
Maybe that's another episode.
Sure.
Have you back on the show.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Just taking on that mentor role that so many women have done for me. So.
And is there a song? Because we're creating a playlist here. For me, music has always been a way I can get in state. And for some of us, it is. Is there a song that is your anthem right now?
Yeah. I love like so many genres of music, but I've been really into reggae lately. Probably just because the sun's been out so much. surfing. But there's this song by Tribal Seeds. I think they're out of maybe San Diego. It's called Wicked and Riled. And the introduction to this song is they play this voice recording that it's probably from a long time ago, but it's just so relevant to what's going on today, politically and socially. And it's spoken by this Native American elder, and he has this deep, rich, just potent voice. And his name is, I think it's Red Crow is his Native American name. And he says something like, we were told we would see America come and go, and America is dying because they forgot the instructions for how to live on Earth. And it's like, and then the lyrics are just so, it's a protest song.
Mm-hmm. Freedom song.
I love it. Yeah. But I love it because it's not only like just so relevant to this like political, social, and environmental injustices that we're seeing go down right now, but I feel like it's such a female empowerment song to me too. Yeah. Like, remember history, and don't let it fully consume you, but like witness what's going on. And the message for me is now's the time to rise up. And I'm not saying I have to fly to DC for a protest or anything, but it's just to support and create change in this little small community that I live in, however that looks. Yeah, I love this song because it's just a really good reminder of that. Change is going to come from within our communities and, build outward. So,
absolutely.
Wicked and Wild by Tribal Seeds.
Wicked and Wild by Tribal Seeds.
It's riled.
Riled, not wild.
Riled. Yeah. And wild is a good title. I like that.
Like, ooh.
Oh.
I love it. And reggae is very popular and celebrated within the islands.
Yeah.
So I grew up with reggae, so I totally get that. And Kaiulani, is there anything that you'd like to leave our listeners with today? In particular, somebody who might be going through a hard time right now and just needing some hope or encouragement, and maybe even being faced or false witnessed like you have, grieving and then dealing with trauma and being false witnessed within that. Is there anything that you can share with someone?
Gosh, one thing that Zelly kept saying to me in the days and weeks and months after that happened was that even though, because I kept saying to her, this just feels like such a lonely experience, like I was speaking to in the beginning, she just kept saying, it's in the collective consciousness of community. And so let your community help you heal. I think that was like such a huge takeaway for me, was like, you don't have to suffer alone. And you can always, I was even able to seek out other people that, have had this happen. And I just think don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. Yeah.
Some wisdom from you. Thank you so much for blessing us today with your greatness and with your vulnerability and your humility and with your grace. It's just been so wonderful to hear from you.
Thanks, Chrystal. Right back at you. And we hope to make it back to Byron someday soon.
Yes. Yay. Well, we can get the girls and Kainoa together. It'd be so awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I think
we'll go first, sir.
Yeah, let's do it. I think in the next year, it's got to happen. Absolutely.
I'll be looking forward to that and to your writings. And where can people find you? Where's the best place for people to connect with you, Kaiulani, and to find you and your work?
So I'm writing a memoir, which I'm really excited about. It's a process. It's not going to be ready anytime very soon. But I have started a Substack account. So I've been putting my writing up on Substack under Kai Cole, Kai, my nickname.
It might go to Kaiulani. Who knows?
Maybe. And then I'm also on Instagram. My handle is Moon Sun, for both of my daughters, Moon Sun Mama Kai. And then I'm on Facebook as well. I'm in a really incredible writing group, and we share a lot of our writing on Facebook just because you could put more words on there. I know it's kind of a bit of an antiquated social media platform for our generation and the ones behind us, but I've been putting more of my writing on there and Substack.
Awesome. And that'll be in the show notes. So if you really loved hearing from Kaiulani today, Kaiulani Cole, then you can check out the links in our show notes and connect with her there. You can send her questions if you have any, or if you are someone who has also experienced shark riding or being attacked by a shark, then I feel certain that you and Kaiulani would connect right away.
Absolutely. Yes, please. Create a support group.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. We all need one another, and that this is really what Her Brave Story podcast is about as well, creating community and a culture of courage and sisterhood. So thank you so much for your belief in me by coming on this show and being one of the first women who has shared her brave story here.
Absolutely. I'm so in awe of what you're doing as well. So thank you for being a voice and a facilitator and bringing us all together and amplifying us. Yeah.
I'm so excited. And when your memoir is ready, we'll have you on again and you can share about that.
Oh, great. Okay.
And congratulations as well on coming forth with your writing. And I really see you in what you're doing. And I'm so excited that you're giving voice to your stories and to the stories of other women as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Brave Soul. I trust that these lessons in courage help you to grow your greatness and remind you you're not alone. Please take a moment to subscribe and share this episode, as it helps other amazing people like you to find us and amplify the voices of women rising. If you spend time in the water or simply care about choosing conscious, beautifully made gear, check out my friends Abyss. They create sustainable swimwear, wetsuits, and activewear made by women for women with the planet in mind. I wear their suits myself, and I am proud to partner with a brand that truly walks its talk. You'll find the link along with our special Her Brave Story podcast discount in the show notes. You'll also find links to connect with Kaiulani, including her TV interview, spoken word performance at the Maui Writers Festival, and her Substack. And if you've been craving a deeper connection, head over to Her Brave Circle. It's our community space for women giving themselves permission to thrive, reclaiming their power, and writing new stories together. We'd love to have you there. I'll be right here waiting for you next time you hit play with a smile and your weekly dose of Her Brave Story, because women's stories matter. Until then, remember that you're worth it, and thrive on, brave soul.